Okay, what if I told you that there was a way to get twice the amount of work done in half the time? I know, it sounds like some kind of magic trick, but it's the promise of a framework called Scrum. And it's not about burning yourself out or working harder. It's about working smarter in a way that could totally change how you look at your projects, your team, and even your own productivity.
The whole story of Scrum really starts with this pretty provocative statement from its creator, Jeff Sutherland. The way the world works is broken. He's basically arguing that the way we do almost everything, from software projects to massive government initiatives, is just fundamentally flawed. Is that an exaggeration? Or is he onto something real? Something that spectacular failures have proven time and time again.
Let this number sink in for a second. $170 million. That's how much taxpayer money the FBI spent on a system called Sentinel. This was a critical project meant to help prevent another 9/11. And after all that money was spent, what did they have to show for it? Nothing. Zilch. Not a single line of usable code. Just an absolute catastrophic failure. So you have to ask, how on earth does a project that important fail so completely? Were the people just not smart enough? Was it bad management? Well, the real answer is way more interesting. It points to a deep, hidden flaw, not in the people, but in the very system we're all taught to use for getting things done.
To really understand the solution Scrum offers, we first have to get our heads around the problem. So let's take a closer look at that Sentinel project, because it is the perfect case study of a system that was practically designed to fail right from the get-go.
And here's the key takeaway from the source material. It wasn't about bad people. The teams at the FBI, the contractors at Lockheed Martin, these were smart, dedicated professionals. The failure wasn't because of the players on the field. It was the rules of the game they were all forced to play. The process itself was the problem.
And that broken system, it has a name. In a way, this is the real villain of our story. The traditional, widely accepted, and, as we'll see, deeply flawed method of planning that almost every big organization relies on.
It's called the waterfall method. And, on the surface, it looks like it makes a lot of sense. You plan out every little thing in painstaking detail. You create these gorgeous, incredibly complex documents called Gantt charts that map out every task, every dependency, everything just cascading down perfectly, like a waterfall. They look impressive. They look like you've got it all figured out.
But here's the catch. As General Eisenhower, a guy who knew a thing or two about plans meeting reality, famously said, "Those beautiful plans tend to fall apart the second they make contact with the real world." A Gantt chart might be a work of art, but a real project, just like a battlefield, is messy. It's unpredictable.
In fact, the one and only thing you can be absolutely certain of when you look at one of those detailed charts is that it's wrong. It's basically a work of fiction. It gives you this false sense of security that leads you straight into delays, budget overruns, and, catastrophic failures, just like the FBI's Sentinel project. So, if that old way is so clearly broken, what's the alternative? This is where we get to Scrum. It's a framework that is built on a totally different philosophy. And the difference in philosophy is it's night and day. Waterfall is all about following the plan no matter what, even if that plan is clearly leading you right off a cliff. Scrum is the opposite. It's about constantly looking at what you're doing, checking it against reality, and adapting your plan based on what you learn. It's choosing to deal with the world as it is, not as you wished it would be. At its very heart, Scrum is built on this simple but incredibly powerful loop. First, you plan a small chunk of work. Then you actually do it. Next, and this is key, you check what you did. Did it work? Did it get you closer to your goal? And finally, you act on what you just learned to make your next plan even better. This little cycle is designed to hunt down and eliminate waste at every single step. And this whole approach is guided by the core values of what's called the Agile Manifesto, which Scrum really brings to life. Just look at the emphasis here. It's about prioritizing things that actually create value, people collaborating over rigid processes, having a product that actually works over tons of useless documentation, and being able to respond to change instead of blindly following a plan that's already out of date.
To get all this done, Scrum focuses on destroying one primary enemy: waste. And in the book, waste isn't just inefficient, it's treated like a moral crime. Think about it. It's wasted potential, wasted money, wasted time that people can never get back. Waste is anything and everything that gets in the way of creating real value, and Scrum is totally obsessed with wiping it out.
In this chart exposes one of the biggest, most common sources of waste there is: multitasking. We all do it. We all think we're good at it. But the data? Oh man, the data is brutal. Look at this. If you're juggling just 2 projects, you lose 20% of your time just from switching context. 20%. By the time you get to 5 projects, a staggering 75% of your time is pure waste. You feel busy, sure, but you're not actually being productive.
Here's another huge type of waste: fixing problems way too late. Back in the 80s, Japanese car makers took about 17 hours to build a luxury car. European makers, they took 57 hours. So what was the difference? Well, the Japanese companies fixed every single error the moment it happened, right there on the line. The European companies had a team at the end that fixed all the mistakes. The lesson is crystal clear. Fixing problems now is always, always cheaper and faster than fixing them later.
All right, so we've seen the theory. Sounds pretty good, right? But does this stuff actually work when the stakes are high in the real world? Let's go back to that $170 million disaster at the FBI and see how this new framework turned that total failure into a stunning success.
So after the original project was officially declared dead, a small internal team at the FBI stepped forward. They looked at the smoldering wreckage of the Sentinel project and proposed something, well, something pretty audacious. They said, let us fix it, and we're going to do it using Scrum.
I mean, just look at the contrast between the 2 plans. It's incredible. The original plan had 220 contractors and burned through millions. The new Scrum plan, it was just 12 FBI employees using the leftover $20 million. They promised to deliver the hardest parts of the project in less than a year. You can imagine the Inspector General was, to put it mildly, a little skeptical.
So what happened? They actually did it, on time and on budget. The new Sentinel system went live, and it had an immediate, real-world impact. The book tells this incredible story of how agents used the new system to stop a $1 million international hack in just a few hours, something that would have been totally impossible with the old paper and fax system. They literally turned a disaster into a triumph.
Look, this is an amazing story, but it's much bigger than just one government project. It really raises the most important question. What does all this mean for you, for your work? How can these same ideas apply to building a business, launching a new product, or even just organizing your own life?
So here are the big ideas you can take away right now. First, planning is good, but blindly following a bad plan is just stupid. You have to constantly inspect what you're doing and adapt. Second, treat waste, especially multitasking and work that's just sitting there half done, like it's a crime against your own time. Trust small, empowered teams. And finally, remember this mantra: demo or die. Always, always have something real and working to show for your effort.
And that really brings us to this powerful final thought from T.E. Lawrence. Because Scrum isn't just a project management methodology. It's a framework for becoming one of those dreamers of the day. It's a practical way to take those big, ambitious ideas, those dreams you have with open eyes, and systematically, piece by piece, actually make them real. So the question it leaves us all with is pretty simple. What dream will you make possible?